Welcome to 50/50 Books, the book review podcast where the books are split in two and figuring out just what is going on is a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jonathan. This episode we're finishing up The South by Tash Aw. Well, Taylor, we had another character-heavy book this time, which I know tends to be in your category. How are you feeling about it, having reached the end?
I feel like I finished this book and I was kind of worried because I was getting similar energy to kind of the unit, which we just read, where it didn't feel like a lot happened.
Right.
Both, plot-wise, obviously, but also like character-wise. A lot of the characters still feel pretty much the same as where they started, but I think there was some change that happened just in like a sneaky way.
I would agree with that. I think there'll be probably a couple times throughout this discussion where this comes up because I think the idea of like who is static in this book is complicated, which is kind of a fun feature. It definitely was light on plot points. I think a little bit more kind of happens in the last quarter of the book or so. I think like I can tend to be a bit, I don't know, I can get bored with a book like this sometimes, right? When it is super just like getting into the weeds of what the characters are experiencing, kind of day-to-day life, things like that. I didn't really feel bored though in this book. Like I thought there was kind of it's quite a large group of people we're dealing with, and maybe that's part of it. There's kind of a lot to think about in relationships and how parents are affecting their kids and things like that. So I felt pretty engaged.
Right. And I think, oddly enough, this it's a queer book, but I feel like we probably mentioned this in the first part, but the queer relationship isn't really like the focus, I would say. I really liked in the second half of this that we got more of the sisters. We weren't really sure how much they would come around, but really I feel like a group formed in the second half, and it was nice to see their interactions and like, it I don't know, it showed a lot about each of their characters, not necessarily directly, which I always complain about. I don't really like direct characterization, so yeah, I liked it, I would say.
Yeah, I'm glad Lena's disappearance wasn't a permanent fixture of the book.
Yeah.
And I'll say too on that topic, like, it's so funny because we talked about when we chose this book of like, finally we're not doing a sapphic book for Pride Month, but the women were my favorite part of this book, frankly. And like, I do think the book is a bit advertised as like this, I guess, romance / coming of age story for Jay, but it is really, it's a lot more than that. So anyway, I'm excited to talk about everyone in this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't feel like a lot of stuff is happening. I think that I feel like the atmosphere, both in regards to it being summer and also kind of the writing atmosphere, lends itself to each other. Like they play into each other. I at least got the feeling of like this kind of slow, hazy experience while I was reading that kind of mimicked what was actually happening in the book. And I feel like that's why it doesn't feel like a lot happened.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely the hazy vibe comes through. And maybe that's complemented by the fact that there's these kind of flashback moments, right? Or like looking back into childhood or the past that I think support that, almost like like visions in the heat kind of vibe, right? Of like, oh, like just like there's something, kind of reminds me of Holes, like the movie, right? Where like you get these flashbacks to the past and it's kind of got that desert vibe, right? So I see that here for sure.
Yeah, and it's a lot more prevalent in the second half that this is a Jay from the future writing about this, right? So
Yeah.
it's also memory. And I think this gets brought up directly in the book too. Or maybe I'm forgetting, but like memories aren't really clear, obviously, so you get that haziness again, and there are going to be parts that feel kind of skimmed over, because you're so like emotionally detached maybe from the things that had happened at that moment. So yeah, some of the stuff can feel maybe surface level or like we're skipping over a lot of stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just how a summer goes when you're 16, I guess, right?
I think there's something realistic about it, whether or not that was really the intention. Like, it feels realistic to kind of go into temporary bouts of reflection and not necessarily reach their end. And there's something more about this sort of collection that the book puts together that is the story as opposed to any one of those scenes.
Yeah.
I did feel like when the end of the book comes, I'm like surprised a little bit. Like, oh, it's the end of summer. Like nothing signaled the end of summer per se. Like things start coming to a peak in some of the relationships, I guess. But it is like, wow, like we were really kind of just experiencing it and flowing through until suddenly it ends.
Yeah, and there is still a lot that doesn't feel resolved, which I think is also realistic. Like a summer is not enough time to completely change your life, right? Like,
Right.
and for Jay especially, like he can change as much as he wants, but he's still returning to school, right? He's still returning to an old life he can't really get out of. So it's like important. Obviously, the summer is important for him, but like it's not the start of the rest of his life, right?
Yeah.
It's just a moment in time.
Again, realistic, because I think summers can have that feeling when you're growing up and you have time off, and I don't know, depending on what you get up to, like it can feel like, wow, like this was such a big thing. But then you do just kind of go back to school, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of that kind of returning to normalcy, though, it makes a lot of sense that kind of the two main characters we're getting in this is obviously Jay, because this is his story he's writing, but then also his mom, right? Because we see how good, I guess, this place is for her. She obviously has a good relationship with Fong. They seem to get closer. And then she kind of just goes back to normal.
Yeah. I feel like the characters in this book are being tested in the summer. Like their character is being tested. And I think this is like super true for the adults. Where like Sui does kind of have a lot of opportunity now, right? She's been given this farm and that kind of assignment of power that comes with it, right? And that it's technically just hers, and so she's tested on what she could do with that, and like she's kind of, I don't know, there's other breaking points too with like Jack losing his job and just I don't know, her increased willingness to acknowledge the affair. Like there's so many things, right, that are happening around her and to her that she could have done something with it, and it's like a test of, but will she, right?
Yeah. Lena and Yin are like in opposition about this, right? Because Yin is like, well, she doesn't really have a choice, right? She has to do what Jack wants. She has to blah, 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 blah. Dutiful wife type of thing, right? And Lena is like, there is always a choice. Like, not making a choice is still a choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah.
we see not just about selling the farm, but for basically their entire history together, Sui has basically disassociated her entire life. Talking about Hazy, like when she's talking about, I had one kid and now there's two and now there's three. It's like we're skipping over all of these monumental occasions and just kind of existing in it, and she's just like not connected to her life at all.
Right. I think she just followed traditional path effectively, right? And I think this connects to some of the, first half of the book thoughts of her going back to being kind of the farm girl, right? And like it's almost funny because the idea is like wanting something more, but the more she wants really is the access to traditionalness, right? To be able to live a life that has structure and something to it, but now she's in it and she sees it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean she's willing to change her behavior about it, but then she also sees that she's imparted this on Yin, right? Like I thought there was a pretty cool chapter in there where it's effectively psychoanalyzing the kids from her perspective. And she sees like, wow, like Yin is really trying to be what I became, and I just kind of think that's a mistake, but she doesn't really, I don't think she knows how to say that, right? Or like change Yin's mind on that. She sees that she set a certain example, but doesn't love the example she set.
Yeah, and clearly we know, because Jay writes of like Yin getting married and having kids.
Yeah.
We can't speak to her happiness in that future life, but we at least know she does follow a very similar path to Sui. So similar to how Sui can't speak about the cheating, or at least at this point in the book, she doesn't tell Jay about the cheating. I'm assuming at some point she does if he's written about it.
Yeah, good point.
It doesn't seem like, in recent times at least, she has any of these important conversations with her kids. And we knew this from the beginning of the book, of like, they're so eager to not spend time together. And it's just a little familiar. Like,
oh no.
even if you're trapped in a house together, like if you're not emotionally connected with the people inside of it, it's like, are you actually a family?
Right. Yeah, when are you family and when are you roommates?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, if she's not willing to like honestly, if she's not willing to impart any kind of like wisdom or lessons into her kids, which doesn't seem to be the case, it's like, what is she doing for them other than kind of just existing in their space?
Totally. One of the things I observed, I think about all of the parents in this book is that I think they have sort of a thing that they what's the word? Like a moral that they should be around for their kids, but I think they only understand that to be a physical commitment, right?
Hmm.
And that they need to like put food on the table and like have a job or, take care of the house or in Fong's case, the farm, right? Like I think they see like the boxes that they need to check to have quote raise their kids, but they are like totally missing on the personal presence, right? Like with Sui being unwilling to, right, to kind of like share these thoughts that she has, and with like Jack is just like not personable to anyone, right? Like there's just no chance there. And then like Fong and Chuan have kind of minimal relationship as well, right? So there's been none of the personal communication parts that are required for being a quote present parent.
Yeah, this is skipping a little bit, but the Fong and Chuan thing is interesting because obviously it's neglect that's happening, but that's obviously not seen as problematic. Chuan himself is like, I like the freedom I get from not having, anything happening,
Sure.
which is a mistake.
Yeah.
You're a child, you should be looked over,
Well, yeah, and it's
to
like
be honest.
understandable, right? He's a teenager, so but like he would feel that way, but it's not. Yeah, he hasn't been set up for success in that way.
Yeah, but it's interesting that Fong is like, you lack discipline. Like, there's like all these issues Fong has with how Chuan acts, but it's like, well, if you weren't there to impart that discipline or to raise your child, why are you expecting them to suddenly grow up as you want them to, right? Like, you didn't do anything to cause that effect.
Yeah, exactly. You briefly brought up that the moment where she's thinking about telling Jay about the cheating situation, which she kind of swerved me on because I thought it was the job she was talking about at first. But so that was kind of clever. But I think to this relationship she has with the kids, like it's cool to see that she knows them, right, in that whole psychoanalysis. But I think she was about to make a mistake, frankly, in telling him first. Like Jay is he totally would be the most likely to keep it bottled in the way that she wants, right? Like I think she's choosing him because it's safe and like others wouldn't find out, and then she can say to herself that she told someone. But I think Jay also would have just taken it the hardest, right? Like he is super high emotion, I would say. And so I think she would have just been burdening him. And maybe this is like I think she doesn't know because she hasn't really tested these waters before, right? If she's not super open with the kids, she doesn't really maybe understand what would be burdening to them, or like what would be important for them to know.
Right. I think this falls into a mistake she makes. She seems to think her and Jay share resistance, right? They both have this characteristic that they're resisting. But I think for her, resistance is actually just apathy. She thinks if she doesn't feel something or isn't like impacted by something, then she's resisting it, right? She's
Yeah.
surviving the situation. But that isn't the same. And we can speak more about that with Jay. But like, yeah, the fact that he does feel things deeply, he's not just going to take this information and feel nothing from it the way she might, right?
Yeah, in a way, she's like gonna train him to become that by doing something like this, right? Like that's maybe more of the unintentional intention, if you will.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I do think there is some truth to Jay being the best to tell though, only because there is no best person to tell. We do see when Lena talks about Jack almost hitting Sui, Jay does know about that, but he doesn't say anything about it,
Right.
right? Not even in
Exactly.
that moment. So it's entirely possible he would have kept the cheating a secret, but obviously you can't tell. I mean, you probably should tell Yin, to be honest, to kind of shatter her rose-colored lenses a little
Totally.
bit,
Right. Yeah.
but it would obviously devastate her. And then if you tell Lena, she's just going to use that as fuel against Jack, right? So
In a way, that feels like the safest one, though, right? Like Lena has nothing to break here. Lena doesn't believe in her parents' marriage. She doesn't really believe in marriage, right? I think telling her that there's cheating going on, she'd be like, oh, of course my dad's an asshole, like he's a scumbag, of course he's doing that.
But I think Sui brings up something important in that, like, I think she uses this word. I think she says vindictive, right? Like, I think Lena would use that information to try and hurt Jack, which would result in hurting the family, right?
That's fair.
So I think it would be kind of explosive to tell her.
That's true. I mean, like, kind of her whole existence is pushing back on her parents, right? So
yeah, so Sui wants to tell somebody, but she doesn't want change to come from telling somebody, right?
Right.
Which is kind of a cop out, really.
No, yeah. It's just, yeah. It's so funny. Like, yeah, I think of the parents as like I mentioned the static dynamic thing at the beginning. I think of the parents as kind of like dynamic in place or something. Like they're wanting to change, or they're experiencing change, but they are just so stuck, right? Like they're gonna come back. So they can go through the sort of internal change, but they can't act any differently. Like it's such instinct, and it's so the most obvious point being when she does get in the room with Jay, like she's going to tell him, and then it's just like, and then just doesn't, right? Like she can have a mindset change but not have a behavior change. It's just not instinctive for her.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. It's kind of sad, to be honest. Like, we did talk about the possibility of, like, what Sui would do as, like, a theory. And I was like, if she stays with Jack, that's just so tragic for her character, right? And here she is, staying with Jack. And it is
she's, like,
fucking
accepted
tragic.
it, right? Yeah, it is. It's tragic because she's accepted it, maybe, right? Where she's like, this is just, I don't know, I'm just going to keep on going at this point. And I there's sometimes where it feels like, well, yeah, like, it's hard to understand her totally, right? Because we are not her age. We have not gone through a marriage like she has and been committed to something for so long. We do not have 3 kids. Like there's so many things in which we won't understand what her fully perceived cost of changing things really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's other cases where I feel like I see it more, frankly. And like, I'm not sure I can come up with an example per se, but there's been times where I'm like, yeah, like I can really see how like this could just totally rock the boat of life in a way that someone might not be willing to do. I think maybe because we get the kids' perspective, especially Lena's, and have the context that we have, it makes me so deeply be like, no, you really should do it. Like you really should leave him, because it would rock the boat, but I think the long-term effects would be positive in many ways.
Mm-hmm. And the farm, I was it Lena that brought this up? Like, if she's selling the farm, it's her money. She doesn't have to give it to Jack.
Right. Though she probably will, frankly. I think they were right about that.
Yeah. For sure she will. But there are choices to be made, right? And she's just kind of going the easy route.
Yeah. It's upsetting too, because like there's on the farm topic, like Fong is like, well, like I know what we can do. Like I can buy the farm and I can do something with it, right? Like he has these ideas of next steps, and like Sui really, like that's like the last opportunity, right? Like she really could make her own decision about that, and instead Jack is like, well, that's a stupid idea, and then that's like the end of it.
Yeah, it was so this is a slightly different conversation, but similar to what you're saying. When they're in the cafe and Sui is making choices, she's like, we could do this and this, and Fong is like, he's willing to listen and go along with her decisions. I just thought that was such an interesting foil when compared to like Jack, who would probably feel belittled and obviously wouldn't listen to Sui's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is a man who is willing to listen to you and who like trusts your judgment.
Yeah.
And you've probably never experienced that in your entire life. Like, girl, wake up. Wake up here.
Right. Yeah, and she so willingly throws that out too, right?
Yeah, and not even throws it out, literally stabs Fong kind of in the back, to be honest.
Right.
That was devastating.
I think too, I was trying to figure out, we talked about this a little in the first ep, but like, is there a romantic vibe happening here? Is that the implication? Like, I was starting to like muddy the waters of if this was like a brotherly love type vibe, or if this was like this is what could have been, right? Like missed opportunity, like romantic situation.
I think so. I want to talk about this more later, but like, we're getting this from Jay's lens, which is very romantic. So I think the story between Sui and Fong is also painted as quite romantic. I think we get hints of it. Like when Sui first visits the farm and she's walking without her boots and she's expecting to meet Jack, but it's actually Fong that's waiting for her. Like I think that's supposed to be romantic, right?
Do, given the Jay's perspective thing, could it really just be projection of like he wishes his mom ended up with Fong or something?
Possibly. He does hold Fong to a high like not standard.
Regard, yeah.
Yes, thank you. So it could possibly be that. Also, if he does find out like Jack got together with Sui when she was young and then cheated on her, and
Yeah.
he obviously would not like his father after that, so maybe he would want to imagine a world where his mom had somebody who actually like loved her and understood her. It could just be a lens thing.
I kind of would be curious. I don't think I will do this, but I would be curious to go back and analyze a little further what you pointed out of some of the chapters being third person and some of them being first person. Because I think it could bring into question what part of this book really is Jay's. Like, it is the part that Jay wrote only the part that's in first person? Like, do we truly have like a narrator in the book that is able to give us some somewhat objective view of like this type of interaction, right? Like where we have this whole set of scenes, whatever, between Fong and Sui that Jay would not have been present for. Like, are those written in third person? I guess they have to be, right? But like, is there an implication that it's Jay, the third person writer, or that there's a narrator third person writer in those cases?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, what are we supposed to take with a grain of salt because it's Jay's versus what is kind of just the truth?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all Jay from the future. I think he's writing about his mom in third person because, yeah, he wasn't there. So he's kind of writing her story for her.
Right.
And then there are parts of his story with Chuan that are also in third person that, I mean, at this point could either be done because he wants to treat them kind of like a story, or maybe to your point about lenses, like maybe they're not entirely the truth, right? Like maybe there's some fiction added into it. He's kind of romanticizing the past. So I think the only one I can really remember is like when they actually sleep together, like in the bed, and there's that physical disconnect they have, whatever. I think that's in third person. So I wonder if it's just like I need to write this in third person to further disconnect it from myself.
That's too close to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But we've traveled a little bit.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about Fong some more, because I think he's a character that wants to consistently change throughout the book, but obviously he has no power to do so. And then he's kind of forced to in a way he doesn't want to.
Yeah, right. This is what sticks out to me about the whole, he has ideas for the farm thing, right? It's like he's actually willing to take on some change in a way that a lot of the other characters are not.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Jay said something interesting about Chuan in this category of like when Jack announces that they're gonna sell the farmland, that he's saying like, oh, Chuan, like, didn't really fight back. Like, I'm shocked he wouldn't like fight back for his home, but like on the other hand, like things kind of happen out of his hands anyway. Like there was kind of an acknowledgement of something similar here, but I kind of didn't interpret it the same way that Chuan or that Jay did. Like I kind of just thought Chuan was pretty disengaged with home, right? And that was the motivation. It almost felt more like it was about Fong's reaction.
I guess he can't imagine Chuan ever actually leaving, especially because I think he does incorrectly assume that this is their home, which for Fong it is kind of their home, but also for Chuan at least, this has probably never felt like an actual home that he could make roots in, because at any point it could disappear. And I just don't think Jay can fathom that thought, really, which might be because of youth. I would hate to just push it onto him being young, because I feel like every character does that, but this might be an instance where it's like he just cannot understand this situation.
Yeah, I guess there's like a bit of a privilege difference too, right? In that he hasn't been in the guest position really, right? Both at home or on the farm, like they're his families, so he doesn't understand like having this type of relationship with a place you would spend all your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to lean back into a conversation I've already brought up a couple times, but this whole like static and dynamic thing, right? Like I feel like, so I talked about the parents getting tested a lot, and like that's kind of the change aspect in their lives, and that includes, you know, like Sui's internal things that she's going through, also like Jack is losing his job, Fong is losing the farm, all this stuff. I wonder on the side of the kids if almost like they're the static characters, right? In a way this is a coming of age story, right, for Jay, but I almost don't feel like Jay is changing. Like I think he's just learning about himself, but I think he kind of is the way he is, and I really don't know if any of the kids are changing character wise.
Yeah, I think Jay mostly is learning about himself, but I think with that comes a boost in confidence. So I would consider that a change. Mostly the situation I'm thinking about is like the very end of the book when he decides to stay longer. Sweet kind of doesn't give him an answer. She's like, whatever, and he pushes. He's like, okay, so can I stay then? And she's like, whatever you want. So like you can see the difference between like the apathy and the resistance in that scenario, where he's kind of actually willing to push back and like stand up for himself, probably in a way he wasn't willing to before. Like if we think back to the beginning of the book and like him working the farm and Jack being like, what did you even do? And Chuan has to be the one to step in and kind of say, well, actually he did this. It seems like, yeah, we're not having this against Jack, but we can talk about that relationship. But like at least he is willing to speak up sometimes, right, for what he wants.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah, I think for the most part this is just he already knew he was queer. He's kind of just, I guess, building confidence in that, and for the most part reflecting on the fact that he will never be completely confident. Like there's always still going to be some nerves attached. He's still always going to be overly emotional. Like there are things that he's accepting about himself, I guess, is a way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, I guess that is also changed to a degree. I think maybe the reason I felt this way is because, I don't know, like that doesn't really line up, because I'm thinking like the parents are static in that they don't have behavioral change, right? It's all internal stuff that they're like really going through. Whereas, yeah, I guess Jay is experiencing some behavioral change, but I don't know if internally a lot is changing, right? I guess you could say the confidence is an internal change as well, but it's just more like, yeah, he is increased confidence in a person who he already knows he is.
Yeah, I think it can be difficult to like kind of pinpoint maybe if, because like he's surrounded by characters and like a world that is like, you shouldn't be emotional, you should not have empathy, like this world isn't romantic, and instead of being like changed by the world and even changed by the people he loves, he's kind of just like, well, maybe I'll grow up a little bit and I won't be as emotional, but I'm still going to be emotional. And, you know, maybe the world is kind of tough, but I'm still going to have empathy, right? So it's like, I don't think, and maybe I'm mistaken on this, I don't feel like it happens very often that like, it's not really, he doesn't have to change who he is. He kind of just like is like, well, actually, I'm kind of fine how I am.
Yeah, I'm just going to be more of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I feel like is a flavor we don't get very often, right?
No,
like
that's true for sure. Especially to like choose that route, right? Like it's kind of resisting the wear of the world.
Yes. Yeah.
On the topic of Jay's empathy, I feel like the way he communicates is so distinct from the way that Chuan does. He's definitely emotion and feeling forward, and he's willing to use words, right, when he's talking to Chuan a little bit more than the other way around. I feel like Chuan is very physical. He does a lot of like touches, grabs the hand, the wrist, the arm, things like that. But he's I don't think he articulates feeling kind of the entire time, with the closest one being like after he showers, him being like, I want to be clean for you, you know. But like that's like the extent of like Chuan being able to verbalize.
Yeah, Chuan is so kind of closed off. Like he doesn't want to burden Jay with the realities of the world, whatever, and starts treating him kind of more like a kid. And it's kind of like, okay, so you don't want to tell me about this stuff with Jesse, but you will have sex with me.
Right,
okay,
right.
I guess.
Exactly. I mean, just it lines up, frankly. Like I just not to throw too much shade here, but I definitely see this in the community, right? Of like people who are much more willing to be physically involved than have a conversation, right? I think the gay community can be pretty physically focused sometimes, and sometimes that's for, I would say a valid reason of seeking things like sexual pleasure, and for other times it's to repress the other parts, right? Like just totally not have to address the realities of the world, have to get to know someone and the complications that come with that, right? Like of a full relationship. I feel and fear that Chuan is going down that route of not really seeking to have a full relationship, just seeking to kind of check some of the boxes that he's unable to resist, right? Of being like, well, I want a physical relationship with someone. I want to be touchy. I want to have someone around, but I don't necessarily want a relationship. And I don't even mean romantic, just like a person to person one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which kind of fits who they are as people, right? Like Chuan, we just talked about his home life, that inability to feel rooted, and that could definitely carry over into a relationship. I think especially with somebody so young, like being with Jay, it's like Jay's gonna leave, he's gonna go back to school, he's gonna start his life. Obviously, we're not gonna be together forever, right? So there's a certain like practicality, reality brought into it, which I think is fine. I don't think Chuan is necessarily wrong about the fact that Jay will probably move on and find somebody else. It does start to feel like, are you taking advantage of a young person
Yeah.
who likes you in this situation? I don't know. I feel like they work it out because Jay talks about him, Lena, and Chuan all joking in the future, so
Yeah.
there's still some kind of relationship there, but it starts to get a little sketchy, at least at this point.
No, totally.
Especially because Jay is, as I've mentioned, like such a romantic. He's like thinking this is gonna last, and he wants to go slow, and all of this kind of stuff. It's like they're just not at the same. They don't have the same outlook on life, really.
Totally. Yep.
So yeah, Jay is more of a romantic. We see this, I mean, I've mentioned with Sui and his own relationship. I know this book is supposed to be a quartet of books that follows this family. I'm not sure if that means after this summer or this summer told in different perspectives.
Right.
But it would kind of be interesting if we got, if not this summer, this group together again somehow, and kind of could see just how biased, I guess, Jay is and how he's telling this. Like, are the cracks of this relationship more obvious from Lena's perspective, who has a very different view of what love is, right? Or what exactly is going on in Chuan's head throughout all of this, right? Like, we don't really get a good enough look at what he's thinking about, really.
Mm-hmm.
He seems kind of, as we mentioned in the first part, he seems very put together and like, I wanted to say experienced. I don't know if that's the right word, but like he seems self-assured, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But that's obviously coming from Jay's perspective. And there is a sort of happiness to their relationship even at the end of this book when they're probably not going to see each other again, at least for a while. That's obviously written that way because Jay is the one writing this. So I guess, yeah, I'm just interested to see what it's actually like, right? Because I feel like this is so... I got the impression this was so romantic and, like, so idealized, really.
I would be so curious about Lena's perspective in particular, because she, like... I don't necessarily think she'd be more reliable, but she's definitely got a, like, more... I don't know what the word is. Like, her perspective is more... We're likely to get a more complete perspective from that angle. Also, like, I think hers would allow it to go past any concern or shock having to do with the queerness of it, right? Like, I'd be curious, like, how much in on it she is with the Chuan and Jay relationship, and like what her assumptions are about them, right? And like what's going on, and like her whole thing of feeling like marriage is effectively too much, right? Of too much of a commitment, and there's too many expectations. Like she kind of emphasizes that that's for men and women, right? Like I would almost say like Lena believes a marriage is between a man and a man or a woman and a woman or something like that, you know? Like she just seems very anti-hetero. And so I wonder if her skepticisms of marriage extend to even just a relationship between two men, or if like that is its own category, like what her perspective on that would be. And then also just like understanding Chuan and Jay as people, right? Like she knows them pretty well by the end of the summer, especially she I mean, obviously she knows Jay well, but like she knows them both well by the end of the summer. Like what does she think is going on here? And like, does she feel like the temporary nature of it is kind of a good thing, right? Or like maybe a learning experience for Jay, right? Like I'd be curious what she thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do get the impression she knew. Like she
Yeah,
would send them
seems like
looks.
it.
She would, yeah, say certain things. So I think she definitely had an idea about it. And she's also going to like art college. So you want me to believe there are zero queer people there? I
Right,
don't think so.
right. I mean, I also just think she's queer, right? Like it's never been said, but it just her whole every idea she shares about all this marriage and relationship stuff is like the only thing she's not saying is that, right?
Yeah, I think she's also like in a country where obviously gay people are not going to get married. So like
Yeah.
they will never fall into the trap of being married because they actually legally cannot. So she doesn't really have to like specify that, I guess,
That's
in
fair.
this situation.
That's fair.
She goes to an extreme about this where like no matter what, being in love with somebody or having somebody love you means obligation, right? Like having expectations placed upon you, and that's like 100% a bad thing and like a loss of freedom and all of that kind of stuff. So just a very harsh idea of it. It would be interesting, I guess, to see her fall in love. As cliche as that sounds, like
having to confront these ideas, right? Like have a motivation to challenge them.
right, because like she's not wrong, right? There are expectations with Chuan. He mentions this, like being in love and having somebody rely on you, like that just is what happens. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's seeing a marriage of obligation where everybody is miserable. So what does she have to base anything off of, really, right?
And that kind of brings up another question of like how much of this does have to do with and an assumed queerness here and just her versus her childhood, right? Like yeah, she grew up with this as her example. And she was the one who witnessed the almost, I guess, the domestic assault, right? So her idea of marriage was broken from so young. Like maybe it can't be disentangled from her potentially being a queer character, but I if it could, like I'd be curious how much of it is coming from that and how much of it is coming from you know not already not being set up to live a traditional life if she is queer.
Yeah, so a book from her perspective about this summer or like beyond this would be so interesting because like would there be a vibe between Sui and Fong? Like would she catch something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or is that really just Jay being a romantic? And like if she did have like an inkling of something going on, how would she like feel about it? Like I don't know, we're talking about choices, and like her mother isn't able to make any, and I don't know, she doesn't believe in love, but like would she be upset for her mother for like not choosing the opportunity to be with somebody better, right? Like
Right.
I don't know. There's interesting things to ponder.
I wonder if it's gonna be 4 books, if that's all the kids in this story, or if we'll get parent perspective too. We got so much Sui here that I almost doubt she would get one at this point. So
Yeah, I wonder if like a Yin book would involve more like Jack history because she's like the closest with him.
I guess she's closest to both of the parents now.
She's like, yeah, the most like Sui and like follows her around, but I think the kids note that Yin is like the only one that can really like talk to their father.
Right. Right.
But that's because she's like the obedient child, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd also be curious if she ever finds out about the affair, like in that book. Like, would she sympathize with him?
That's a great question too. I mean, there's definitely room for that, especially if she is in the sort of traditionalist route, right?
Yeah, she might think positively about like him still staying with his family and like supporting them, but then also he was an artist, right? Like, he has to follow his heart. Like, he really loved this other woman, so, like, what was he supposed to do? Like, there's that kind of nonsense, right?
Yeah. Shall we get into reviews?
Yeah, I guess we can get into reviews. Do you want to go first?
Sure. For me, I think the kind of what I said at the beginning of this being a nice, engaging read for a character-focused book sticks out to me for sure. I think it's hard for me to point at a certain thing in this book and be like, this is what I'm taking away, which is maybe the difficult part. Like, I think this is a good exploration of a family, and I love getting into the sort of dynamics that it got into. It'd be hard for me to like go to someone else and be like, this is why you should read this book. So that's kind of the only thing I'm struggling with, other than like if that person is someone like you, Taylor, or like I know they would get something out of this book, right? But it sticks out as above other ones in its category for me. I think I'm gonna do a 3.5 out of 5 for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I did it an injustice by reading it so quickly. Like, I really should have taken my time and, like, thought about it more. I liked that Sui and Jay were kind of very similar characters, but you can see the ways in which they choose to live. Like, it's very different. And I guess I just like a main character that actually has empathy and emotion.
Yeah.
And, like,
honestly.
isn't afraid of that. And is also a man with some empathy and emotion.
Right.
Honestly. So I don't know. I feel like I finished this book and I was like, I don't know what happened. Like, to your point, I'm like, I don't really know what to talk about. But I think...
Did you like that?
Well, it's also a problem for me because, like, I feel like I've had a string of books where it's like, I just can't emotionally connect to them. And I don't think that's a problem with the book. I think that's a problem with me. So I think some of that feeling of apathy I'm feeling is like a me problem because I have a lot of apathy. But I think this conversation and like actually thinking of the book and like I was doing voice notes last night because sometimes I just don't want to type things, so I'll just speak it. And like I feel like I could talk about this book longer, and I'm excited to see what else the author does. And I'm kind of rambling because I'm like, I don't really know. I'm like, I kind of want to give it a 4.
Yeah.
Maybe once all the quartet is out and like if I read all of them, who knows? Maybe it could be a 5.
Ooh.
Like as a collective, you know?
Right.
But we'll see. We can't get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. I think instead, let's do a rose thorn bud this time. It's been a while. I guess reminder, since it is one we do less common, rose is, effectively like a good vibe, something positive from the book. A thorn is something that was kind of like, kind of wish this wasn't there, this didn't happen, something in that line. And then, especially because this is a character-focused book, this should be good for this. A bud is something we would look forward to for the characters in their future. Do you want to start? Or would you like me?
I can start. I think my rose is... I had a lot of feelings about... This is probably the most I felt when I read it. But Sui and Fong are talking, and they talk about the tamarind trees, I believe they are, right? And then we get to the end, and it's the chainsaw, and Fong is cutting down tamarind trees. I was like, oh my god, I was kind of gutted. I was like, holy shit, he felt that betrayal. And this is like insane. And it's kind of just swept over by Jay. Like, obviously, he doesn't understand the impact of it. Right, but we got it, right? Like, it was, oh my god. That was crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. That stuck out strong to me.
Yeah. I guess my thorn is... I don't know if this is going to make sense. Or, like... It's kind of a weak thorn, maybe. But, like...
Go for it.
I remember in the first part speaking about how I was concerned about how physical their relationship was. And they being Jay and Chuan. And we did kind of end up there, really. Like,
ended up with a particular dynamic, you mean? Or
yeah. Ended up where it felt like, to me at least, that the physicality of their relationship was really what mattered, right? Like, the relationship was so almost secondary that they didn't have many meaningful, deep conversations. maybe because Chuan was, closed off. We talked about all of these things.
Yeah. It was kind of background. I get that.
Yeah, but I it just, I don't want to say it made me uncomfortable. That's not the word I want to use. Like, I think exploring sexuality is fine, whatever. But yeah, I'm always looking for, I guess, like the emotional depth to a relationship. And it's kind of what Jay was maybe looking for, but not Chuan. And so there was just like they just weren't connecting on that level. So I guess it's not a thorn. I guess it's just unfortunate.
Totally.
But yeah, thankfully, like, it's not like they were constantly having sex. So that was fine.
Right.
I would have actually, like, hated it if it was, like, more than just, like, 2 times or whatever it was in the book, right?
Yeah, whenever we read a book that has effectively sex scenes, and I'm always, like, thinking of, like, oh, man, I hope Taylor doesn't just totally throw this book in the trash, right, while this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we explained why it worked in this book, but it also just it worries me when it's like 2 people of different ages and different life experiences engaging in sexual activity, and like
Totally.
there's other like pedophilia kind of mentioned in this book, and so like it was, yeah, there were some vibes that were happening that they were starting to worry me, but we were fine in the end. But it was a concern for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my thorn. Did that make sense as a thorn?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
And then my bud. There's like an obvious answer of like, I hope the kids are okay. And it seems like they are, considering like at least 3 of them still talk. Hopefully pretty regularly. I don't know, but they joke around and stuff. So like they're communicating, right? But instead I'll say for my bud, I hope Sui eventually makes the choice to leave Jack. It'll never happen. I know this. I feel like she's gonna be taking care of him until he's dead, and then she'll be free. But I can hope. So
yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the rose is maybe Lena's whole existence. Like, I just really enjoyed. I'm like so glad again that she didn't just disappear for the entire book, because I thought having that rebellious type vibe was like so perfect for like the interface between the parent stories and the child stories in this book, right? Because there really are kind of 2 sets, and so I thought it was essential, and I thought it was done well, and I just think Lena's kind of interesting and fun, and I totally hope one of these books that's coming out is hers, because I will definitely be reading it if so. I just want to know more about her and her brain, so
yeah.
Thorn, you kind of gave a bit of a foreshadow to it. It was probably that chapter where it's going through what Jay's experiences with men have been before this, which have been minimal and also kind of icky. So I think just having to read that was like, like not fun. Maybe I get why they're there, maybe I don't, because right, like I don't know how fully impactful those things were upon him, other than just to like prove to him that he was interested, right? So essential to him, but I'm not sure if I understood essential to the moment, which was, I guess, him approaching a first interaction with Chuan, right?
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, like what purpose did they serve?
Yeah, maybe just context, right? But it just felt icky to read, so of course I'm going to question it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think for Bud, what I hope for the future is that Jay's confidence in who he's becoming extends to, I guess this is obvious maybe, but like extends to his sexuality. Like I think there's a cultural context here that we didn't talk a ton about, but like he gets introduced to something kind of special when he goes to that karaoke bar, right? Where there's like acceptance, right? Pretty immediate acceptance from the crowd of what was going on. And so like I'm hoping that he's able to lean into that too. And like I never want to assign someone having to be a role model, but like I think he has the opportunity as someone who's familiar with his queerness from a young age to kind of demonstrate that confidence for people around him, and I think that could be powerful. I think that's all for the South.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
The next time we are reading Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. We are reading up to, but not including, the chapter titled Gone, or Mr. Armstrong Goes to Bampton. And this is a fantasy book, so we're back to fantasy. I feel like it's been a while since we've done a fantasy.
I think so.
Also, I'm seeing a tag of historical fiction, which is
oh boy,
frightening.
Frightening is a good word for it.
Yeah. I think it's basically like mysterious child found. Multiple different people are trying to claim her.
Oh yeah. I do remember reading this description, and there is a historical fiction vibe to it. I'm not too concerned though. I am curious about how much fantasy is gonna come in.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'll be like less like historical fiction, more period piece, if that distinction makes sense. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be kind of fairy tale-esque.
Yeah.
But yeah, short summary. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, well, let it speak for itself, so.
Yep. So if you have any thoughts or theories about Once Upon a River, which we're reading next, or what we just read, The South, all of our socials are in the description.
And please give us a follow and 5 stars on whatever podcast app you use. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.